No, I'm just not using it. I'm all set.
Ansh?
Yeah.
Cool.
Out there, legitimate anything of the duty shop, the different orders, short term, with the time of the office, making sure making before every time community company else the two are concerned the after hour really need this auto. No worries, I want to see your return to preventing Norway, which is worse than security, what is time other with that great movie, the 7 CM, Mr. Theory, that's which we have always lose insurance topic at second interpretation negative. Must consider the presumption for visibility for violation of prohibiting here to the every theater. One insurance to the one insurance, one religious theory, framework, conditions, disproportion, skeptics, no need for security, something completely way, anything else is the anti with multiple more insurance, something against 2 4 New York, anything leverage against the third interpretation negative, must see for the framework, consider all about violations, review, violation, church, or defense of my framework, and also for the alternative framework, refer for trust, aids, and also for the world, one is for both ways of framing and opposite way, you frame out, read, bunch of terms, yeah, making the right of puzzle form, and essentially, since you're on either of the framework conditions, for significant being negative activity, finish out disclosure, one is time allocation, think around the one is secret team, one layer of substance, solves, and think of the waiver, constitution, whatever, maneuvers, having before proof, forward interpretation, intention, to disclose all contracting features without no sort of violation, supposed to disclose either the full text or first three and last 3 words of the cards, and citation tags, and sidebox, and the open case of the agency, which under the name, school, incorrect side with an hour after rating violation, or the screenshot, they don't use sites, and these state finals for the honor of the set of colonialism critique, and there's no site for that, there's only tournament of champions round 2, Harvard Wesley finals, and college prep, vote for the round preparation, they want to do that, Dr. Club, over computer, Dr. This, everything else, which you should not have, at least 10 different option positions, sidebox, all virtually instantaneous, and that doesn't download it, we lose valuable prevention, critical ability, engagement, the case of arguments, only have less quality, track, negra, after grounding, engagement, no options, the counter, the arguments, the ability of sites, and the wiki automatically does it for you, using norms, any one-on-one, and subtle, long-term IRA, only 110 seconds, so that's how you can encourage you, or should not debate with the best one debate looks like trying to word is there, interviews, arbitrary, you guys suggest to determine reasonability, with your resident, then particular conduct, you have to win reasonability when IRA drop, the debate return their whole practice framework. I value about it that ethics, not natural, the one that naturally falls against a goodness, fail to find out what more. Okay, good explanation, goodness, no particular elevation now. Like our there. Those who can say that we receive according to the although we actually second only truth and knowledge is the clinic agency, the mechanics world. Relying on the necessary determinism of freedom and human shoulder. 20. Freedom of responsibilities come out of trains and ideas, true one has to say freedom. Also, we describe freedom as the thing is something. Truly, truth is something with freedom. There are truths categories. This is something not natural, but naturally, internally, from nature, being internal. And externally, we only think you can consult their features, cause 14 internally, maintain capture from the way of isolation, any remote internal random. That natural generating confusion, trace of operating, and anything they were probably here. Arguments that result of argument is really good. They bind to only probably because you create agents who are trying to do against otherwise the action and reject AGA, you get require process to make the decision be action carrier. More or less more action to value action, including on the whole, being included actually the going to house every guarantee leaving all which are seeking action of moral values that only the practical safety seals has the action. Together any more value doesn't hear related action they control of quality should say anything else is not more related to your practical that never told not contradicting to you came before, proving not from anything is a ethical solution for one of you should all be ethical. We have found operators is that kind of like experience for instruments where we now are attributes falls and have offer these for the company. So there needs to be additional operator points to become both 3 platforms and operations. Resulting in obligation, however, we are rational plus not against the current is we say with course with 36 is equal operator property code. And you can depend on those are really attractive which problem subject is the original entrepreneurs is external what is over the individual law. Technical elements and takes of our freedom necessary to move simply equal attributes all in our the world and determine whether the future false anything to lose it. To the AC for class message the world that better than other reader about consider that balance of after against the revolution practice running they get us out of the shirt from true usually in charge to for the same one motivation they kind of motivation interest motivation protecting sure humans means that after the motivation percent human motivation means to be an agent that's been motivated action other people something trying to good action makes not really good and doesn't good service the condition of the condition information for the lab machine as rational nature human level that all the source initially good option principles goodness of rational will rely on the offense. I believe that situational reason building present was station don't have region stations like the alphabet diagram for all DAs based on the region within that King Carter artificial combination based on those who prefer one military present violation of nation harmony reports more less than the middle late night fight summarize people show people roads in the nation reports leading for the constitution and this one may not for the here with the government conduct represent rock representing for the force and represent those people example should be seen as a one would run the economy of every nation is military intervention military idea of federation and not intervention rules special political purposes or result repression is taken of the good program that intervention death father moral skills for the intervention worse situation that only a lot of rules can come around like basically rules they are correctly the same unfortunately taken already between the same part of the economic situation of partial judgment the condition there to argue the right condition therefore running from the state certain regional so the intervention to justify the infinite intervention if you know there's a violation prevention with the results of the same infinite right violation we constantly if you know the message section abandoning the progress the process normally justifying progress of halting due to any positive project for liberation normative philosophy is good in the alternative fields we need to know they were right this is the best card in the debate that's framing plus took you after the certain possible it's how the last thing about politics and philosophy making questions about the leave the rational struggle to raise a question will go through. Ain't going to war, just always be careful. There are prejudice justice, rescue action requires objection access, sentence speech, we're coming to attack, get here with the right enemies are wondering that you possibly grant after some reality, otherwise, we're living with rules on there, truth matters, no factors will be a careless, if you for themselves, you need to know why we're acting for warfare as adequate as human nature, we default to merely negative criticism image, false only incorporating party and quality knowledge for delivery short termination result of death, instead of applying normativity to the continuity, their critique business point, Taiwan, bills, first of all, revealing terminating racial justice, that culture, racial differences, you need to remove it, idealization, on ideal would be counterproductive, that it's a world that we involve principle, priority, justice, right down to race one, idealization, flavor, not ideal, serious, when their pressure, will they came in, does she help us for educating, use of military, no longer wanting, running, our will tells us, idolatry, by the sport, assert dominance over our lands, which is her, resident Jesus, president, provincial, volunteer, Japanese military, acts as bloody hands of American, they're driving the quest for familiarization, calling, picking members of the U.S. and Afghanistan, just record from the Vietnam War, which is probably about as a nation, Asian country, some of the displacement, leaving by Italy, escape description of like the coming out of the wars on Afghanistan, the military, because of what's all occurring, transit, narrative, enable, European American training world, outside carrying into something, familiar driving to exploration, and cover the permutation is a collaborative act, which regards the state for indigenous resistance, rejection is possible to trap the cycle act in life, 20 the state is not changing, and desire to lands limited agency overlooking the reality of the organization, and rights to civil rights, kind of track for shifting their state position, anti-determination, decolonization, we used to get the sheets in a way did it with the rights for organization, people talking about saying it's not changing over life, potential for positive change, and people will achieve any process that can rematch and tell you about kind of this kind of dignity, I'm just like, limits possibility of indigeneity. Cut the cardiac activity. Anything else?
Good for cross.
Yeah.
Actually, wait, which card was inhibiting?
Lightfoot and inhibiting.
Okay, good for cross.
Mm-hmm.
The offense military presence violates nation's autonomy. What nation's autonomy is violated in the context of presence?
Every country.
What constitutes a country?
That's irrelevant for the, like, why does that matter?
You said it violated a nation's autonomy. What makes a nation have the right to autonomy?
Yeah, sure. Two things. One, any collective governing body. This doesn't mean like something that's like politically recognized by states. It could be.
Okay, so does the U.S. have autonomy? Do property rights, does the logic of property rights here also apply to the U.S.?
What does that mean?
Like you said, nations have autonomy and should
sure,
not be.
we would say U.S. property
Does that apply
like
to the US?
on an empirical level, you're correct that U.S. property rights are bad. Yes, we agree.
No, I'm literally just asking.
No.
You would have said.
That's my response.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Sure.
You said nations in Ghana have property rights that should not be intervened upon. Does that apply to the U.S.?
Misunderstanding the app again.
answer
No, wait, Ansh. It's like if you want to do like a reductivist like yes or no, sure, I'll answer. But again, that is just missing the entire point of the app. The app says that generally on a normative level, it is the case that we should protect those rights. Whether or not on an empirical level those countries matter is irrelevant. We can disagree about that all we want,
Okay,
but regardless
that
of...
doesn't make sense because
No,
my
it
question
does.
is, in what situation does a governing body have the right to autonomy over its land? Does any governing body have the right not to be intervened upon? Like if I make with
Yes,
my
again,
friends,
coach,
I'm like,
yes, sure.
if I make a group of my friends and I'm like, we're a country now, you can't intervene on us, is that like justified? Like does that make us a nation?
Well, okay, there's a couple of things. Again, one, the empirical condition of whether or not this suffices as a country is irrelevant because you can still draw on based on like on empirical factors such as like
Wait, if it's not a country, if it's not a country or a state, what
irrelevant.
right? If it's not a country or state, what right to autonomy does that?
Ansh, this is the same thing as me asking you over and over, what is a person? How can we determine? It's the same response and it doesn't matter.
You're just posturing.
Yeah, I'm not.
You said
like,
states.
this is the actual philosophical response. I get what you were saying. What you were saying is
Okay.
irrelevant to the app. The app
But
says
it's not
well,
relevant
no,
to the app. You
I'm
said
explaining
states.
why
Okay,
you're not
do
letting me
states have
explain.
different autonomy than people?
Yes.
Okay, then what constitutes a state? Like that is a
Well,
relevant ethical question.
Again, wait, I explained what Ansh.
Okay,
I already
fine.
explained.
This is getting nowhere. I agree. Okay, next question:
Okay.
Is hindering and hindrance justified under the framework?
What does that mean?
Like, is it okay to lie to the Nazi at the door?
Shouldn't lie. Like we say lying is
Ever?
bad.
Ever?
Lying is bad.
If the state
Lying
went to
is
an
bad.
indigent, always.
Lying is bad.
Is that a yes?
Lying is bad.
Okay, so no hindering hindrance.
Lying is bad.
The transcendental idealism argument. Does this mean that we can't ever resort to claims in the natural world?
No. We've never made once made that argument. No.
Okay, so then so we can resort to fact in the natural world.
Again, that is not ethically relevant. We could do that, yes. It might also help us in our progress for action. It is not relevant, it does not base our actions though.
Okay. Does anything in the act trigger permissibility or presumption?
Everything.
Okay.
The entire app. That's how apps work.
Wait, how is that how apps work?
That's how
it doesn't
every single app
prove. It
works.
doesn't prove that anything is permissible.
The entire app.
How does it
works.
your shall prove anything is permissible?
Nothing in the app
Okay.
explicitly triggers permissibility or
Let's start
presumption.
that.
The entire app could trigger either of those two. That is how every app
I
should
started
work.
that. I'll start my life 332. 1 in case. Should be case is the like, I guess it's not an underview, the like overview theory stuff, disclosure included, then the framework, then the offense. Actually, I'll do the method, then the framework, then the offense.
Method, framework, offense?
Yes.
The theory stuff too, or no?
That's at the top.
Okay, so theory, so top, bottom, framework, offense.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me a second, I'll be good. I have to get my flow. Okay. Yeah, I'm good now.
Okay. Everyone good? Settler colonialism is the permanent structure. These two which present elimination of digital land without patience, settler privileged states, ghosts, and child state attractions they were tugging into all the rights of the settler colonial nation, where total prohibition of the level land that existence all software, all things under the social capital assumption of a digital relation of land represents time ontological cost of advance, and not to be we started ATM occupation, settler colonialism structure, invent solid reverse central slide decolonization, for us people to echo contradictory decolonization with the intrinsic colonization of identity power to filter and try towards the bridge decolonization as well the patriation of land. Ideal theories of more abstraction away from the material balance of settler colonialism, their brief from nowhere is down useless, but actually pops up settlerism, Nichols in 13 civilized versus civilized with justification for appeals and ideal theory has been relation to historical narratives instead argue that principles of society can be generalized after with the resembling neutral and ideal because they were in civil society were always central page narratives so the judgment the subordination the ideal civil society premise upon the extermination of indigenous people reactivations used to shift the relative argumentation attacks and counterfactual level relief the burden of proof for colonial states appeal to the ideal center of problematic appeal to an ideal even as the risk of advice the question does not be he says to the function of justifying ongoing applications most abstract neutral non-valuable function most different strategy self domination rhetorical structure states discuss practice such sort of not consider logical one the basis including this direction by the point of departure itself every facet of our and foreign policies indebted to settler colonialism into people are raised to being cast invested primitive and landless the foundational assumptions are complicit in the destruction of native life and governance King 17 in our indigenous philosophies of martial counter-resistance investing foreign policy in our replicated settler colonialism settler colonialism find limits of what is possible for foreign policy the relationship between people not just will be characteristic of foreign policy of subject order by domestic institution for digital policy such a business foreign policy settler colonialism crafty of our custom legitimate policy the international about communities and north of resemble state agreements and custody to most predictions instead that will incident for close the possibility of research political communities their invocation if the skip that link the alternative is refusal of the Athens ideology it's unconditional Simpson 16 the political describes affective possibility but also for pushing what should be refusal stands for also theory the political those between us over and over again but he sees that the apparatus of the state refusal often looking at the posture of the state's three-time refusal able to slip through the research and help to think beyond what counted through the channel of recognition refusal subject through to the force of presumed disappearance and operating sense of revenge consent to the ongoing senses it's all over with refusal the limit efforts of the state the role of the ballot is to embody refusal of settler logic and normalized within the settler psyche and naturalized dispossessive on settler colonialism is reliant on the every reiteration of affective understandings known as settler common sense which takes the one he sees iterative refusal a necessary project to build towards material decolonization this is also linked to their understanding of property rights written in 13 settler common sense such as not any accident to service given unmatched occupancy body recognition dispossession needs attention on relational placement on psychological part of the ongoing exertion of settler non colonialism which relates to that being normalization banishing every means founded with the discord non-native conception of place colonial dispossession through the natural site to displace life in the heart of non-native governments may displace us somewhat become common sensible our interpretation sets to judge the actions of research trying to get to a material implementation or consequences of the case one plain focus restrict debate to they lose the rest of the outcome question they should be responsible for the way that the knowledge is constructed and used because that produces the best model for attributes and ethics two the case of prior question informs the value of the game between debate trains seems to be balanced side of the round that comes first three performance theory or an educator responsible for judging the behavior and scholarly production of the Athens you should drop it if you're in link four vote neg on presumption if you had as Lucy the after nothing voting out for produce the advantage to discuss our arguments split up how we do policies and debate five their appeal to procedural fairness the clash in settler states cause internalization of genocide kills indigenous people Stanley 21 acknowledging indigenous genocide states efficient settler ideologies internalism on non-native communities through internal colonialism settler colonialism establishment proceed to uphold the same true self-future settler ideals are better than policies never space that indigenous people pressure conform to settler culture or gain legitimacy civilized ignoring settler processes that position people's past major settler goes immortal perpetuate the start on the theory shell after is legit but always drop the beta encourages spitballing shells which forces to occur because the two speech advantage goes clash they're warned about no RBIs to deter norming is bidirectional which means no one error RBIs either the negative does not have to concede that either permissibility or presumption of first means that the app would always win because they can always win on one trigger outweighs the other presumption permissibility and the presumption permissibility negate there was no justification for why they affirm and independently new triggers in the one means that we get new responses in the two and art because they didn't answer cost makes it impossible to be neg encourages sandbagging and hiding security strategies the negative concede the affirmer counter trip the neg contest about the app framework and contention. One is clash. Key to discuss intricacies of frameworks with contention. Turn strat 2 since it affects the negative ability to read different arguments on different pages. 2 strat 2 wrong. We can't frame their offense out since it's equally reciprocal since the negative has to win both the NC framework and contention. 3, the app is first and last speech after part time 2 speeches. Applies this to every level. Means that negative flexibility and negative ground always after the disclosure counter will defend the violation. Counter debate is only enough to disclose side boxes for new arguments that have not been read before. 1, if the regress turns norming and disclosure arguments, it means that the norm will be broadly adopted. Always something else they could ask us to disclose with scores topic education. 2, solves their offense. I read Cycle before, which is why there's a site for Cycle. No reason to actually buy through every version of Cycle turns their offense because it means that the wiki is filled with every single ground, every single argument on the citation box, which makes it turn into their offense. 3, reject out of ground theory, not verifiable since the screenshots can be doctor checking wiki forces judges to do work on their own, which takes bait out of debater's hand and is the result before reasonability on disclosure, specifically evaluate the bright line. If they don't abuse anything else, next clash in standard education. Vote after pre-on prep is wrong because this is wrong. We answer the prep argument above. The norm setting rejected. 1, debaters don't look at other rounds of theory results, red meaning that this round does not set a norm. 2, in round abuse the death for proportionality. Anything else just like giving the death penalty for deterrence or to set a norm, which is incoherent to the reasonability argument. We agree what we did was reasonable in this round. That's the only possible standard because deterrence is that which is answered above. Now the framework, top level 1. Every morally repugnant argument in the one he sees an independent link that they should be allowed to kick out of refuse level the applicable for the race choice that made 1 secret to students that normally rip out waste 1 life for strategic gain. This answers any new tricks or permissibility triggers. 2, auto reject any affirmative argument that tries to claim the impasse of the K don't matter. 9, that things like genocide or race matter makes the debate space unsafe and encourages the development of racist subjectivities, outweighs A accessibility, making a safe environment to such every other impact disproves the conclusion of the theory. Even if you can't think about exactly where it fell apart. 3, we get new to our response to strikes. Anything else establishes the one standard living arguments that was above. 4, K before 1 in theory. A, ethics of the office race justifies marginal increase in views and all framework arguments proves that they should be able to the the app. The 1 year theory seller for validity that attempts to show out discussions of sellers and also applies to permissibility because it means that they don't have to engage with the K, which is a performative reason to reject it. Now the method proper. The first argument about normally justifying progressive politics, we have an ethical theory which we'll defend, which is indigenous epistemology, and independently we've impacted an ideal theory and normative frameworks, which is that the alternative does not fail. Independently proven by the fact that countries who do not use Kant still know that genocide is bad, which means that we don't need to have an ethical justification for our actions, even if we can take the right actions. Independently will win that their ethical framework is wrong, which is all of the links. The Kantian philosophy and the alternative is liberatory. The permutation does not solve. We've given multiple examples of ways that Kant would be bad. 1 is property rights. The app says that even in the United States, settlers have rights to property, and that cannot be intervened upon, which would prevent the possibility of decolonization. 2, their understanding of states would apply to the United States. Either A would apply to the United States or B would not apply to indigenous nations, which means that either their framework collapses because all groups of people are states and all of them have autonomy, or they're not, which means that the act does not recognize indigenous groups as states and does not have their own autonomy, which means that even if Kant in a vacuum might be good, their application of it is bad, which is still a link. The Wana argument, this is consequentialist, so it contradicts their own framework, but it's also not grounded in Orientalist ideologies because we've impacted the understanding of the app. We also critique presence in Wana. It's the question of whether that happens through state involvement, and the way that they frame that, which is all of our framing arguments, the permutation, not collaborative. You do not use the state for indigenous resistance, you use it to preserve American legitimacy. Now the framework stuff proper, universalizability, bad word 11, the receiving people lifestyle, long inclusion in the nation states such as our rights, inclusive without assimilation, reparation, genocide, definitely the duties, community, disparities, and citizen colonization, but wants to freedom of the expense. Another a priori. 1, beginning a priori assumes the position of this body calculator that is inaccessible to natives who attract their identity. 2, it can't exist. If 2 people disagree about a priori claims, you have to develop empirical claims to resolve them. 3, all the ideal theory arguments. Answer this inescapability regress. 1, presuppose we need to keep asking what's good or bad, even if the process leads us to unconditional human worth. Argument is the decision of Rodriguez solves the problem of regress. If we choose to recognize genocide as bad, full stop. 2, we can be schmagents, it's not binding. 3, tailoring objection, you can totally rule to be specific to your circumstance when we use any action or maxim universalizable. Their arguments about goodness are bad. We don't need one that goodness in vacuum is good because we're not going for utilitarianism. The universal ethics is possible and valid. Ethics is informed by social occasion, subject position. A rich white person might have an obligation not to steal, but that doesn't mean someone stealing to be their family's bad.
Cross. You good? Yeah. Last argument made, what was it?
Universal ethics is impossible because it's informed by social location. For example, a rich white person might have an obligation not to steal, but someone stealing to feed their family could be justifiable. Also, like the hindrance argument in cross-ex, we think that it justifies that completely.
Sure, that makes sense. The critique alternative is a floating fig?
No.
Cool. What does the alternative do?
Refuses the app and settler ideology.
Okay, does this operate on like a pre-fiat level, or is it like what does it mean to like when you say refusal, right? Like assuming that like the critique loses like K framework, does the alternative still defend does it defend presence still isn't wanna, etc. Like on a level of like
it's not floating pit, like I said.
Well yeah, sure, but like absent like the K framework stuff about like refusal within academic spaces.
What do you mean absent the K framework? You can't separate the two. Our framework
well, yes, sure. Then my question is that was my original question, right? Whether or not the
alternative. Assume we win the framework, the alt still rejects the app.
No, I get that. I'm saying assuming that like you should evaluate the consequences of the app, etc. Does the alternatives have presence in one?
Well, we would reject the foundation of the U.S. Decolonization would be an outcome of that because we reject the foundation of the U.S. We also reject, like I said on case, we reject imperialism in WANA. It's just a question of whether that reduction happens through the U.S. or not.
Sure. The links, is indigenous property good?
What does that mean?
Should indigenous people have property rights?
Indigenous people have a fundamental different understanding of property. They don't think land is owned. They don't think land is like a right to it.
Sure.
They think that land is a sentient being that you have a relationship
Do you think all indigenous people think that?
Indigenous tribes in the U.S. have a shared understanding of land.
All of them?
Not all of them. No, we've not made a homogenous understanding of
You
indigenous
just
people.
said that though.
No, we've said that indigenous people who disagree with the app are forced to conform to your understanding of Western property rights, which is bad. Like, sure, there might be indigenous people who think Kant is right or who think the app is right.
Fine.
We've just said that the indigenous people who disagree with the app would be like genocide under your
That's fine.
finger because they're not given rights to their own land.
That's fine. The like role of the battle theory power stuff, why is indigenous death bad? Or like genocide bad?
Well, because our alternative framing mechanism is that settler ideology is unconditionally bad and that indigenous death falls
Why?
under that because indigenous, I mean, like, we think that this is tautological. We think
Why?
that, again, we've said, look, this all, yes, you're trying to get to the point that we need to use Kant.
No,
We said,
I'm
ideal
not
alternative frameworks do not exist.
I'm just asking why is secularism bad?
Because it's like violent, causes suffering to native
What does it
people,
mean to be
violence.
violent? Like what is the word you just have said? What is violent? Like what is the word that you?
We don't think, this is like all the arguments we made on case, we don't need to justify why suffering is bad. We also don't think normative or ethical frameworks can exist that can answer these questions in the first place that are ethical in every instance. Which is why even if Kant might be able to explain why indigenous violence is bad, your application of that is racist, which is all the links we have.
Sure.
So even if the app might theoretically be able to explain why indigenous death is bad or explain the K better, your application of it in this round is racist. That is all we need to win to vote nay.
Yeah. What's the specific application that's racist? I guess that's cross, but. Sorry. Didn't read the extinction link.
No.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay, 3 minutes taken. Order is the overview, so the theory stuff, the framework, slash contention, like the contention will be on the same page because it's whatever. Then the critique. No nuance. No dog. No cards. Yeah, please. Is everyone good?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Ansh. No, if you're any of the theory subject of the orgasm of the shuffle, we will concede that we should reject that violation because it is irresolvable. It takes a fairness and concedes that the double term with the fairness of the matter argument because it's a procedural argumentation. Often the reason to reject any of arguments based on the violation of fairness, which is in the 1C, which means that at worst for them to reason why fairness, or so the invocation of fairness is not a reason to continue the fair. The national capacity of the morality of sovereign natural supremacy is describing goodness as naturally just begs the question of reversing empirical fair so further explain it. Only a practical reason is non-natural binding. Choosing to reject the system and engaging in that means we ought to be respectful of universal capacity reasons necessary consistent with the civil equal outer freedom that affirms the duty to promote perpetual peace and conceded any precedent is by definition coercion and intervention to those outside of the omnilateral world of limelight on the framework of burden evidence will answer on the critique people who go for the ideal theory slash universalism and good argument. This is an application of just empirical bad times in which people were not able to apply Kantianism or ideal theory or equality in a good way, but not why it's generally bad. This is embodied calculator argument again. Ideal theory resolved the levels above the disagreements that does not reflect our moral basis. Even if we are never disagree, it does not mean that we should base our ethics on naturalism. The ideal theory. That argument again. With the same argument above, bindings doesn't assume. Yes, we will answer the argument. Yes, we should be able to ask what is good or bad. That was the first and flown evidence which will mention on the critique detailing our objection is wrong because empirical contingencies do not change our maxims. That's the more evidence is making definitely wrong because we use reason to reason. That was reason extension above. The goodness of universal the social location argument is also wrong because it doesn't reflect our moral standing because someone's in a poor worse position is unpredictable station point for ethics, which is also the more evidence of method page. We'll get you on the critique. Now, proper first permutation to the act, the method of the alternative. Second permutation to both. Third permutation to the act, the alternative. Third permutation to the act, and then the alternative. If we want to risk the act, you truth that all benefits the role valid. If we want our framework is good and answer this, also we will answer the property stuff on the state link, but independently conceded and tested evidence, we reduce state property rights and reject them in totality, which is the act method. So we answered this the Tucking argument. First is the state link permutation to the act, and then the alternative. The plan is negative state action and the state links are incoherent. The act does not say we must use the state, but winning our ethical framework means that we have an obligation to do the act regardless of the nature of the being that is acting, because bad actors still should act morally, so we do not defend statism. Second, extend life with a K denies indigenous agency, abandoning the act altogether, and its method of reason is the same conservative view that indigenous people are subhuman. Life demonstrates indigenous subjecthood is robbed of reason and agency under the state, but are still autonomous agents capable of pursuing change only because of their practical reason, which is a net benefit to our framework. Their response to it was absolutely incoherent. We aren't forcing indigenous people to anything. Our argument about agency, they respond to it like the state. Good progress argument. The Nichols evidence first, universalism is good. The metaphysics that this is true. Every theory makes for universal or presumptions about the world. Any attempt to reject universal principles means that the universal principles go unchecked and are not rigorously justified, which is the end of the theory. Second, extend Taiwo. It was terribly responded to and just dropped our argument is that the application of a race-blind ideal theory in the context of racism resolves everything because you need a motivation to be able to strive towards something, or else you have no locus of duty. The king evidence is inevitable. The alternative cannot resolve. Just talking about IR shouldn't be a link because we do not defend IR being good. If the act is a detraction away from IR, which is the differential piece stuff in the ideal theory above, so resolved. Now, group the links of philosophy. All of them are about the history of philosophy, not the application and its truth. We will impact turn nor when ideal philosophy is necessary for political theorization. Theory warrants one motivation. The critique cannot motivate decolonization because they're not ideal stance can't generate truth for people like the settlers to operate under the universal rights established coherent lines of reason. Second, circularity. Even settlerism is intuitively bad. They cannot generate normative guidelines to achieve their ends because they don't define what those ends are. They have no articulation of why violence against people is bad acts of the act. Third is ethical egoism, lying to the subjective convention of what oppression is based on your circumstances allows for biases even only by abstracting away from our material condition can we keep our empirical character and check and counter on subjectivity. That was one you see for him in plus. Their response was unresponsive. Cross-check shows you that they just think of the typology of countries that operate under intuitions are also using our theory as a frame, and you should be able to explain why your theory is generally true. Now the ontology of a trauma, they said defining oneself as a human forensic attachment to the oppressive identity formation absent universal understanding of agency. Our oppressed people are wholly wrong in the oppressive identity because they cannot appeal to universal structure that just like their moral importance quickly, the frameworks have well conceded. But we also respond to the fairness of above, just indicating fairness is not bad because they not explain why fairness implicates in those specific ways. Also hold the line for two in our explanations. That's why we apply our theory in a bad way. We have not said that property rights over indigenous people is good, but they've dropped that indigenous people still have some conception of property, which is from the way see.
I had 3D33. Start.
Fine.
Yeah, top down.
Okay.
Okay. Is everyone good? Okay.
Yeah.
Dropping framework means they lose their framework. This is just you go after the refs are good, and then negative they aren't. Just that you should vote negative. We went a single link to the Ash framework. The way that this was the drop 3 point about the performance, they dropped our battle proximity and judgment requirements about how you as a judge have responsibility to reject any racist microaggressions in the round. So if you went a single link to the app, they lose, which means you do not evaluate the app in a vacuum. But you link, you lose with straight up drop. They've also dropped the rule of the ballot. It's an instant neg win condition. You should refuse settler assumptions. Rifkin says that the dominance of settler understandings of access to land as a given, access to property rights, access to agency on stolen land is something that should be refused, which means that even if they went, the continuism is good in a vacuum. They've just dropped on a technical concession, dropped the role of the ballot, never responded to it, which is even if they went to con is true, they cannot cross-apply to the role of the ballot. That'll be new in the 2 are now. They'll group all of the permutations, they're functionally the same thing. The alternative is the opposite of the app. It is a refusal of settler ideology or refusal of the app in every instance. If you win a single link to the app, then the permutations have to be severance out of that form of representation. 2, the alternative is a rejection of state action in any instance. Even the one area is incoherent on state. They just say that they don't use the state. The plan is a state reduction of military presence. Our argument is that using the state or the idea that the state can be an ethical or moral actor is wrong, which is that every time they say that the state should be moral, even if it is immoral now, that is our argument because the assumption that the state can be moral is exactly what our link argument is. 3, the alternative is a refusal of the app. The Simpson evidence says that we should reject any settler ideology and any instance of us against internalize the minds of debaters and then export outside of the real world, which is a form of ballot proximity, and they do not go for any consequences, fail, or reduction, fails arguments in the 1 year, so they cannot say that consequences do not matter because they conceded why consequences matter. They conceded the argument on the framework page about how any argument that tries to deny the case impacts by genocide, racism, etc. is a decision rule, which is that even if they really continuous might be true and the deontology might be good, they've conceded technical reasons as to why you should evaluate the consequences of the app. Now that they say framework is good because they reduce property rights, I'll do the property rights here. Even if they win Kant, you should not evaluate the framework in a vacuum because every link we went to Kant disproves the framework. If they say Kant is true and we win Kant is racist, it disproves the truth of Kantian theory because it's not like they operate separately. 3 links, each of which affect the way the app manifests. 1, property relations. The app is indebted to a settler understanding of land is something that can be owned or given access to, which is fundamentally at odds with the alternatives. Understanding of indigenous epistemology. The entire app contention office proves that they do have a property rights argument. They view the U.S. as a legitimate state which has autonomy and that individuals within the state, including white settlers, have a right to their property even though it was taken from indigenous people by force, which is a hindrance argument in cross-text. 2, hindrance is a link. The framework will justify horrific conclusions means that if the police came to a native person's door with a death warrant for their brother, they'd be expected to tell the truth about where they are. That frames out the link turn arguments. They cannot go for Kant's good for native violence because again, even if it's good in a vacuum, the way they use it in the real world is not. They also can their response to property rights is that they don't say property rights. If this is true, then the entire app collapses. They have said on the contention that nations have intrinsic autonomy and want and rights over their own land that cannot be intervened upon, which is how they justify removing presence that would apply to the U.S. because they have said that the U.S. is a state and an ethical actor, which is our argument. The nation-state model also applies. We'll extend the King Evidence here says that their understanding of nation-states and national autonomy is wedded to a Western conception of statehood, which casts indigenous people as primitive and landless. This is what was said in 1C Crossings, where their understanding of states have a legitimate social contract, etc. Our argument is if they do not think that states are groupings of people, then they do not recognize indigenous peoples as states who have their own autonomy because our entire argument is that the U.S. is not a state, it is not an ethical actor because that land was stolen from them, which means that the U.S. cannot be considered as an actor in the first place because it does not have agency, but their framework is a link. Their arguments, the next argument was Tuck and Yang is wrong because the app is negative state action. 1, ontologies and impact. There is no such thing as negative state action. The idea that the state can be moral is indebted to settler reconciliation. It assumes access to place because our argument is that the state only gets its legitimacy by stealing from native people and constantly genociding, which is an ongoing structural process. 2, they have dropped the rule of the ballot to refuse settler ideology in every instance, which means that you should refuse the idea that the state can do anything because it assumes that we as debaters have the jurisdiction to advocate for state action while on stolen land. All of these are dropped technical concessions. They say obligation to do the act because bad actors should act moral. This is our argument because they cannot act moral, even if they might be able to under their understanding of framework. If we went on ontology, the state cannot be moral at all. They say agency and robs indigenous fields of agency. This is not our argument. We do not say that indigenous people do not have agency. All of our counter arguments proves that their understanding of universalized ability is bad because even if we agree that native people have agency, that agency is good. Our argument is that not every agent has the same agency in the context of specific arguments. Our impact on universalized ability is that the idea that you can abstract away from consequences and just apply the same maxim to every individual in the same way is wrong. All of the examples that we give in the 1C, when a white person steals from a native person who is suffering versus a native person stealing from the state in order to sustain themselves, those are relevant ethical considerations, and their framework's inability to describe the difference between those two things is a reason why it is wrong and is a reason why abstraction is bad, which is our Nichols evidence. They say rejecting universalizability causes unchecked violence. No, it does not, because which is answered above. They say it's an application of ideal theory. Good, again, their application of ideal theory is bad, even if it's good in the vacuum. The way that they apply it in the round is bad, which is every example that we've given. The King evidence say no alternative resolution. That was answered above. They say philosophy is about history of the people. Well, answer their country about ideal theory here. They say one is key to motivate. They have dropped argument that even other countries that have disproven this argument, countries that are not Kantian still know genocide is bad. People who are not Kantian and do not abide by ideal theory know genocide is bad. We prove that the alternative does not need a normative ethical framework to know that certain things are bad. There's no reason why we can still motivate action, because again we do have an ethical framework that says that we should reject settler epistemology and settler ideology, which includes a motivation as to why we should decolonize, because it says that we should reject the site legitimacy, the intuition argument crossed by above, even if it devolves to intuition. The application of that is bad, because even if the foundations of the offer are good, even if the foundation of the offer good, the way they apply to the ground is bad, ethical egoism is functioning the same argument. We do not allow white people to seep in. They do, because they assume that everyone has the same agency. The trauma theory about how the alt is bad for the oppressed is wrong. We do not define natives in relation to the state. We just say that land theft is something that is relevant in consideration in the concept of ontology. The case debate proper, none of this is relevant in the context of all of the links we have won. Look, our argument is that since they have dropped framework explicitly and the rule of the ballot, any individual link is a reason to vote neg. Any single one of the lyric is a reason to vote neg, which is just a dropped technical concession, and any new to response to this is bad. They say that was a double turn for fairness. It's not. We never said that fairness outweighs or education outweighs. Even if we said the word fairness, that does not mean that fairness is relevant ethical consideration. Which is that this is not a double turn, and they cannot go through like saying disclosure theory is fair. Takes out the case. That's obviously nonsensical. They made a technical concession, which is why they will lose this debate, even if they wouldn't constantly get in the back.
Okay, I have 2 minutes. Okay. Where's just the K? Or like, I guess after K, but like, really just the K. I guess if that makes sense. Here. Yeah. One more hunch.
Yeah.
The frame of this debate should be truth. The after that happen within every instance of the affirmative that happen with the correct explanation of the world, rather than our political strategy is significantly better than the critique, which was a one-year argument on cannot flow. They premise a tuner based on an argument that I did make in the two-air, but now the critique first, just saying that we don't need to justify X or Y, maybe fly by an other rounds on, but Jacob, I'm begging you to realize that this entire one HP, especially the Freeman plus evidence, is a direct response to Ansh's tuner. The ethical ego as an argument, which should be the frame of your ballot, which is part of Freeman plus. Ansh's only response to the tuner was, quote, you let bias seep in because you are universal, which is not an argument, is not a claim, warrant, or impact. Think about this game. The entire premise of it, land theft and application to the app being bad, etc., all premise on the concept of indigenous agency being a truth that exists outside of our experience, outside of the consequences, outside of the empirical factors that prove that indigenous agency is good with indigenous people, which proves that the same logic of a priori reason can be used to justify and is required for the alternative to demonstrate and happen, which means that the application arguments do not make sense and they're just instances in which people apply it bad, but the app is not that. Now, distinct debate here. Our entire argument is that if we win ideal theory, which was above, we are not defending that the current state is good, and in fact, only that the app can explain why the current USFG is bad because they overrode the autonomy of natives when they came here and colonized their land, which was a link term argument that they explained in the tuner. Their argument of, oh no, your argument is a link term because, or like the link term argument in the tuner that's like, you're forcing immoral people to do good things. We are not saying as immoral people become good because they're doing good things, but rather our framework says that everyone should take the same forms of actions, which answers now your argument. The permutation stuff doesn't matter if we win our app is a good thing and we answer all the links. None of this stuff goes away. The state action debate we already did above. The Lincoln rejection of the app was also above. The property relations argument was also above. The hindering and hindrance, the hindering and hindrance argument, which is completely new in the tuner. Jacob, you should not have flows anywhere in the 1 and C. The tuner just got this argument from cross-section and was not anywhere in the 1 and C and not in any of the cards. Now, the state property claim, the app does not collapse. Our argument is that nations have autonomy on an empirical level. They do not, maybe because some of the nations are illegitimate, but on a theoretical level, every nation does have autonomy because they are part of parental peace, which is the 1 and C Van der Linden evidence. Our argument is not that every nation is legitimate, not that every settler society is legitimate, not that every property right is legitimate, but rather, if ideal theory is correct, then states ought to act in a way to replicate this. So, no, the USFG is not good, and none of our arguments say that the King evidence, we do not use IR anyway. There's no explanation of this in the tuner, just because IR has been used historically in the past does not mean it's good in the future. The consequence is a good argument. We have not, the 1 and C just said, do not deny the impacts of the critique. This does not mean that consequentialism is a relevant locus for moral framing, which answers this argument, not going for the life argument, which is above the motivation argument, not going for, we only went for the egoism argument. We responded to all the tuner arguments that were slightly relevant and explanation to our thing. The only other argument is there's no such thing as negative state action, but that's not the part of the argument that we went for. The part of the argument we went for is that if Kantianism is true, which they have dropped the framework in the tuner, then you have to evaluate the act as if though it's a question of what a moral actor should do, even if the actor is not moral, which means that the USFG is not integral to the act method, but rather military presence and reduction is something that is good. Great thing.